What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to your AEW All Out review. Man, oh man, I'm not sure I have ever been more excited to get behind this microphone and just talk about wrestling, man. This was an A+ show. It was a home run. And, the bar had been set high with Double or Nothing as, one of the most fun shows I've ever watched. And I feel like this topped it, man. And, going into October, it's now September 1st as I record this. Going into October, 1 month from now, AEW on TNT every single week. They could not have went out on a bigger bang with this show. They swung for the fences, and they hit it over the wall and into the fucking river with this show. This was a tremendous show. So much fun being able to just witness and watch this show. So many great moments and matches and everything in between. Absolutely phenomenal stuff. As always, I'm going to be here to break things down bit by bit, And to start things off, they did go different with the commentary. It was originally, I'm not sure if it was reported, but it seemed like Tony Schiavone was going to join commentary when he signed with AEW earlier, but he was not on this show, of course. We had the team of Golden Boy, who we saw on the Fyter Fest show with Excalibur and Jim Ross. And, Alex Marvez not on the show either. It seems like he's doing more of the pre-show and other stuff. But, bless him. He was put into the fire, really, with no commentary experience in wrestling. And, it's not easy to do. And I think with time he can improve himself and hopefully eventually get back out there. But, JR, I see a lot of complaining of him on the Twitter throughout this show, and I can understand why. I mean, it just didn't feel like he was into a lot of things, and just I've said it before on the shows that he's done. It's just like he's pointing out the things that he doesn't like and just rubbing everyone's face in it for whatever reason. I don't know, and I love JR, and I think in points in this match, in the show, he was very good. I thought in the main event, he did well with guys that maybe he either knows better or appreciates their work more than others. I can definitely see the difference in the way he calls matches. But, Excalibur, always good. Golden Boy, I think, is very good. But, enough about that. I mean, the hiccups on commentary aside, man, this was the most fun I think I've ever had watching a wrestling show. And, unfortunately I was a bit late in starting because I was at work. But I got home during the finish of the Battle Royal, the Casino Battle Royal, with the winner getting a Women's Championship opportunity. I'll definitely go back and rewatch the whole thing. But, Nyla Rose ends up winning that, which I'm all for. My only regret on that is that, they had the chance to build up Nyla Rose going into this. And instead, she lost the triple threat match with Awesome Kong, rather, and Britt Baker. And, she had the thing with the Joshi girls, Riho and Shida. And, she got pinned in that match somehow, which was ridiculous to me. But they get her some momentum with this match. I just thought it would be better if we're going to go on the theme of wins and losses mattering, that she should have had more momentum going into this match. And I believe that she should have had something better at the Double or Nothing show. I don't think she should have been pinned on the last show in that triple threat match. But I'm a fan of Nyla, and with who she's facing, I imagine she's going to be the first women's champion. And so good for Nyla. I'm happy for her that after a few missteps from the beginning, at least they've righted the ship, because at least from the highlights that they showed after the match, because I literally turned the show on as Nyla was celebrating the win. But from the highlights they showed in this match, it looked like she was an absolute dominant force, and that's great. I'm hopeful for the future for Nyla, because her and Britt Baker, and Britt Baker was eliminated by Shady Tactics, so that always sets up a match for Nyla and Britt Baker down the line, and I think those two can really be the staple of this women's division. And Britt Baker, obviously very talented, one of the better all-around wrestlers I think they have. Some of the guest or surprise appearances, Tenille Dashwood, good for her getting on this show. ODB, I saw, that's awesome. Hopefully Tenille, the former Emma from WWE, she sticks around. I think she can be a big contributor to a women's division for AEW. And, she showed talent. Like, you can look back at the stuff she did in NXT, and in the early days of NXT, when she really got over with the goofy little dance gimmick she had. But she had really good matches in NXT, and she's a very capable wrestler. So, and, granted, I haven't really seen much of her lately, but, everything I've seen from her in the past, I don't think there's any reason she shouldn't be able to hang around with the ladies they have on this roster now. So, good for Tenille. It's good to see her back in a big stage. And other than that, we'll go to the second match. I wish I had a better analysis of that match. I just couldn't. I wasn't able to watch it. But good for Nyla. Very hopeful for her. The only other match we had on the pre-show was the private party of Marquen and Isaiah Cassidy going up against Angelico and Jack Evans. I thought this was a really good match. Marquen continues to impress me. I was very impressed with him on the other match they had on, it probably would have been 2 shows ago, so Fyter Fest I think it would have been that he was on, or that Private Party was in. And, if they ever get away from this tag team, I think Marquen, man, like, he could be a real singles star. I feel like the athleticism on him just makes it look effortless, and I think he just has a very natural charisma about him too, from what I've seen. Big fan of him, and that's no diss on Cassidy either, as he's obviously very good too. As far as this match, there was a bit of sloppiness in the match, but still really fun. Private Party end up winning with the finishing sequence was one of the two, Angelico or Jack Evans. I think both of them are actually on opposite corners. And it ends up that I think Marquen jumps up on one corner, hits a reverse run off the top rope, and then the other one, Cassidy, follows that up with another reverse Rana on the same guy, lays that guy out, and then they go to the other one, whether it was Angelico or Jack Evans, I don't remember, but I love their finish, just the Hurricane Rana off the top rope going straight into a cutter, and that's a smooth finish. I think that's something that could really get over, that, you know, crowds could really pop for when they're setting it up. So, all good with that. Good win for the Private Party, and apparently in the first round of the tag team tournament, they're going to be going up against the Young Bucks, and that should be a really fun match, and I'd like to see Private Party win, honestly, if you really want to help get them over. A big win over the Young Bucks in the first round of that tournament, that would be great. But either way, they're going to have the opportunity to really show what they're capable of in a match with the Young Bucks and really acquaint themselves with the audience on TNT. After this, we had a 6-man tag, which opens the main show. We have SoCal Uncensored, Kazarian and Daniels going up against Luchasaurus, Marco Stunt, and Jungle Boy. I really loved this match. I thought it was a great start to the show. Just structured perfectly. Because, if this were a WWE match, it would be the big guy works over the little guy for 15 minutes. Then eventually they get the hot tag, and then they go into the finishing sequence from there. But, they structured this so well with being able to have Stunt and Jungle Boy do all their athletic flip-de-doos early on. And then, you give the heels, they're not really heels, but they're playing the heels in this circumstance because the team of Jungle Boy, Marco Stunt, and Luchasaurus are just so over with the crowd that anyone they go against, I feel like, is going to be playing the role of the heels. But, you have the veterans in Kazarian and Daniels and Scorpio. You have them eventually weather the storm and take down Stunt and isolate him. But that doesn't have to last for 10 minutes. If you are good at your work and good at being able to get the crowd going from the heel's perspective, then you don't need 10 minutes to do it. You can do it in 3 to 5 minutes to actually get heat on the hot tag that's coming. And so I thought Kazarian and Daniels and Sky did a great job with that. And, the crowd weren't not going to be excited to get the Luchasaurus hot tag that was coming. And, of course, it leads to the eventual Luchasaurus hot tag. Crowd goes nuts. Luchasaurus, especially on this hot tag, looked like an absolute monster. And not just, not even, monster is not the right word, because I in fact thought he just looked like an absolute stud altogether. Because, he gets this hot tag, he's taking everyone out, he's double choke slamming and putting the boots to everyone, and then even at one point he's doing kip-ups and handstands and all this athletic stuff that someone his size shouldn't be able to do. Just a terrific hot tag sequence and all around a great performance by Luchasaurus. I thought this match altogether made Lucha, if the goal was to make Luchasaurus look like a star, then this match accomplished that. And then, SCU, Luchasaurus makes the mistake of, during that hot tag, he tags back in Marco Stunt. And so from there, things break down a bit, you get some action on the outside, and SCU get the better hand, and they get Stunt back in the ring, and they end up getting the pinfall victory, pinning Marco Stunt. And, that's fine, because, Marco Stunt isn't going to lose anything from being pinned because, it's what him and Jungle Boy both, like, they're not going to lose anything by being pinned because it's expected. They're at such a disadvantage size-wise that they can't win every time. And when they do win, it should be in large part because of Luchasaurus. And, it doesn't always have to be like that because it can build Jungle Boy and Marco Stunt, if you want to do that, from underneath rather than just acting like they can beat anyone. It really establishes them more as underdog guys. But, they also have this giant half lucha, half dinosaur on their side that'll help them out. And, really good match. And it seems like SCU, like I feel like on almost every show they've opened the main card in some way. I know Daniels and Shima opened in a singles match in the one show. But even other than that, I think there was one of the last shows SCU opened as a tag team, and they're good guys to start with, especially with someone as over as Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy. So good stuff there. And after this, we got Kenny Omega versus Pac, and this match was supposed to be Kenny Omega versus Jon Moxley. We all know the story. Unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be, but we'll still have that in the near future, I am sure. Possibly in the November pay-per-view that was announced. Full Gear, I think it was called. I'm very excited for that. Kenny Omega versus Pac. So good to see Pac, the former Neville of WWE, finally get in there with these guys. And, he and Kenny Omega, they definitely had a similar style to each other, and I think that was what they really played up in the early portions of this match with the showmanship and all that they did. And, I'm not the biggest Omega fan, just because I think a lot of the stuff he does is a bit too theatrical. And I think this did fit that. But it's only for brief moments at a time. And once we get into the meat and potatoes of this match, it was awesome. And, Kenny and Pac just worked great together. And just absolutely tore the house down, back and forth the whole way. And, there was dives to the outside, and, those dives with the guardrails so close always scare me, just because very little room for error when you're going up against those guardrails like they do. But and the big thing with this match is I loved the finish they went with. I loved how they did this. And so Kenny, after hitting multiple V-triggers, he goes for the One-Winged Angel, which notoriously is probably the most protected finish in New Japan throughout the whole time Omega was there. Nobody kicked out of the One-Winged Angel. And so what Pac ends up doing is he manages to lower himself down from the One-Winged Angel to be able to put Omega in a stretch submission. The brutalizer is what they called it. And so he has him stretched out. He has him being choked out. Omega is on his feet. He tries to stumble towards the ropes, but he just loses his wits. He drops down, collapses. He's passed out. He's unconscious. And the ref calls for the bell. Really good finish because, for one, it makes Pac look like a master technician and just overall a very smart wrestler. And for two, it protects Kenny because he didn't take a pin. he didn't tap out. He got outsmarted, and maybe outsmarted isn't really the right word. He was going for the move that works for him every time, but it just so happens that Pac had the perfect counter for it at the perfect time, and just like in any MMA match, once you get that hold on, it's over. And Pac got this locked in, and it was over. Kenny passed out, and Pac gets the win. I am hopeful that we're going to see more of Pac when we go to TV here. I don't know if there's anything said about whether this was a one-off deal or if he's going to be continuing, but really loved what I saw here, and it just shows, man. Like, I always thought Neville in WWE was one of the most talented and underutilized guys on the roster, and he got the run with the Cruiserweight title, and he had all very good matches, but it was never at the forefront. And then you had the whole thing where Enzo took the title off of him, and that's a story for a different day. But he was never given the stage to really show it, and really the only one you can go back to is the Raw in 2015, I believe, when Seth Rollins was the champion as heel corporate Seth Rollins, where you had Neville at the time come inches away from winning the WWE Championship on that Raw show, and he hits the finish. I forget what they called it, the whole corkscrew thing. But I forget what they called it. But, Seth happened to be able to get his foot underneath the ropes, and that was really what the peak of Neville in WWE was just that one near fall. And he's proven that he can hang with anyone. He can put on a great match with just about anyone, it seems like. And I'm looking forward to what they could do with him going forward if he is going to be there for the foreseeable future. But really good match with he and Omega. Loved what I saw here. Following this match, and I got a little scared because somehow we were going to follow this match with the triple threat match of Darby Allin, Jimmy Havoc, and Joey Janela. And these three are a different breed of wrestlers. And really all three of them are unique in the deathmatch sort of way. And Darby Allin, he just has a death wish with these coffin drops, they're calling them. And this was the match was sponsored by Cracker Barrel, so it was a Cracker Barrel Brawl or whatever they called it. This obviously went off the rails, and I'm going to attempt to cover as much as I can from this match and just the ridiculousness of it. And I won't say ridiculous in a bad way, because what I'll say is I definitely enjoyed watching this match, and I had fun watching this match. It was very different, but it's also not necessarily my cup of tea, personally. It's just they all just did so much shit and just threw it all together, and we had everything under the sun that you could imagine in this match, and it was the third match on the main card, and so just makes things difficult for everyone after them too, when this match does everything under the sun. and then you gotta go out and do more. So there's that. There's just the style of wrestling is still very new to what I normally am accustomed to seeing, and so maybe it's just an adjustment on my part, but I'm not crazy about it. I think there could be easier ways to get a reaction than jumping off of the apron and landing on the steel steps with a damn cracker barrel on your back. But we'll run through this. Right away, Jimmy Havoc gets a staple gun, and immediately, and this is right when the match started, he starts stapling himself instead of Darby and Joey. And so Darby and Joey, being the wise men here, decide, okay, well, we'll just team up and take this fucker out. And I don't know, the whole thing with Havoc stapling himself and the glutton for punishment sort of gimmicks, I'm just not into it. I just think it makes him look like an idiot rather than making him look cool, which I guess is the intent, is to, oh, look at me, I'm stapling myself, I'm hardcore. And, we had that with Mick Foley, but it was in a different way, because Mick was such a good storyteller, in ring and out of ring, that it would always make sense, the things that he did. And this, I feel like, is more just doing it to look cool, which is definitely not what Mick Foley was originally. It was not done to be cool. It was actually done as more of an outcast thing at the time. And, it inspired a generation of these guys. So, Havoc staples himself. Darby and Joey team up. They duct tape Havoc's arms and sit him in a chair on the outside of the ring. And then they pour thumbtacks into this man's mouth and duct tape his mouth shut. Hey, I'm not going to kink shame on this show. That's one thing I won't do. Joey Janela goes under the ring. He grabs a tennis racket, looks disgustingly at it, and throws it to the side. And if you're not keeping track, this is a shot at Jim Cornette, who is famous for the tennis racket. And, Jim Cornette remains at the front of the mind of Joey Janela. So that's nice. What was it? The last show, Janela hit a move on the apron and then said into the camera, "Fuck you, Cornette," or whatever. He remains in the front of the mind of this man. And then we get to the ridiculousness of there's other stuff in between here, but Jimmy Havoc has a sheet of paper, and he is paper cutting Joey Janela. And commentary is overselling this ridiculously. And that's just too goofy for me. Like I'm not gonna buy into that. Not my cup of tea, but fun to watch. It's mindless entertainment at that point. More table spots, more staple gun stuff. There's another goofy spot with Janela sitting in a steel chair, being stapled in the head by Havoc. Havoc gives him a monkey flip, but the chair lands seated, and Janela sits in the chair, crosses his legs, and looks very amused with himself, even though he just got stapled in the head. But, at least he landed in a seated position. Darby Allin brings a skateboard into the ring, a skateboard that has tacks on the bottom, does an ollie off the top rope onto Janela's back. We get Darby Allin doing the coffin drop part 2 with a Cracker Barrel this time, crashing and burning onto the steel steps. That looked like it absolutely sucked, especially when they replayed it. The whiplash looked real, but yeah, you can say that the barrel broke his fall a little bit. I don't know how true that is. Like, I don't know how gimmicked the barrels are either, but they tear apart on impact, and there's no give to the steel steps. So you can have a cushion there, but there's not going to be any give to the steps, and so that looked like it absolutely sucked. We get a superplex from Jimmy Havoc to Janela, which I'm not sure if it was if they wanted Janela to land on the Cracker Barrel, but what ended up happening, and it didn't look bad, it looked just as good. Janela's ankle hits the Cracker Barrel, and so he sells the ankle. Havoc picks him up, gets the Cracker Barrel, squashes Janela with a clothesline onto the barrel, pins Janela for the win, and Jimmy Havoc, the madman that he is, wins this match. And, it probably sounds like I'm negative on this, but I still had fun watching this. And really, I would rather have this than a Baron Corbin Raw match with 15 headlocks. So, at the very least, it was entertaining. And, there's things that, I'm not accustomed to, that I'm not all for, per se. But I had fun watching it. After this, we had the Best Friends versus the Dark Order. The winners of this match will get a bye in the first round of the tag team tournament. I felt like this was the only match that didn't really deliver for me. And, maybe it was just because it followed that absolute clusterfuck of a match with the triple threat. But I just couldn't get invested in this. And, it's partly just because I'm not really into the whole Dark Order thing. I don't care for the gimmick. I don't care for the minions. And, just not interested in them. Dark Order win with assistance from their minions, which the referee somehow does not see. And the minions are going to carry away one of the Best Friends, but the lights go out. And, as they said, this is a tactic normally used by the Dark Order. And so the lights go out, and who should pop in the ring but Orange Cassidy? I'm over the whole lights go out and someone appears in the ring thing, but, that's just me. Orange Cassidy, hands in pockets, runs off the ropes and does a dive that takes out all of the minions. He and the Best Friends celebrate with a hug, or it was really Jack Evans and Chuck Taylor hugged in between Orange Cassidy, who remained with his hands in pockets. Yeah, I'm not all in on the Orange Cassidy gimmick yet, but, from what I can tell, he's a really talented wrestler, and, I'll keep an open mind on it. I want to see how it develops, because if we get to 6 months from now and it's still just hands in pockets, careless, yada yada yada, and there's no development to it, then that's just being stupid. If they have a plan to develop the character and get the most out of Orange Cassidy to eventually show what he's capable of, and not just be a sideshow, ha-ha sort of thing, then I think this could be really fun. And, I'll keep an open mind to it, and I have faith in AEW that they have some sort of direction with Cassidy. We had Shida versus Riho, and the winner of this match is going to face Nyla Rose for the women's title. If you didn't know, Riho is very small, as JR would continue to persist to tell us that she's 98 pounds. I went in wanting to not care about this match, and they made me care. And, full credit to both women. They put on a hell of a show, just back and forth all the way. Riho and Shida, just, nothing against either of the girls, but, largely wasn't into it going into the show. So, and the thing with Nyla Rose, the triple threat, really took me out of them. But this match, they absolutely delivered. They delivered more than what I expected. They beat the shit out of each other, did a lot of cool stuff, and just had a really good match. And, it's hard to stand out on a show like this, but I thought they did a very solid job. And, Riho, and my only complaint would just be that there was so many roll-ups in this match. And, of course, the finish was eventually Riho winning with a roll-up. But, minor little detail, but other than that, they did very well together. I thought they worked well together, did a lot of good stuff. It was a very clean match. We had Cody versus Shawn Spears. And this wasn't, and maybe this is my fault more than anything, it just wasn't what I expected it to be. So maybe this is another match that didn't deliver per se. It didn't deliver what I thought it would, but it still gave us something. So I'll give it that much. To go through it right away, this turns into a brawl, and Cody does a tope at Spears, and they end up brawling in the crowd. And what I'll give it credit for is that with the intensity and the amount of personal beef with Cody and Spears going into this match, one of the worst things you can do in a case like that, with the storyline being so personal, is to get in the ring and then start the match with a lockup and a headlock and a takedown, drop down, leapfrog, all that stuff. They just went in there, beat the hell out of each other before the match started. Great. Even Tully on the outside was getting involved. Cody would be accompanied to the ring by MJF. Spears and Hebner got in. Earl Hebner, the referee for this match, got in a shoving match early, and Tully slips in a belt to Spears. Cody fires up, no-sells the belt to the chest, in plain sight of Hebner, who does not disqualify him or even really admonish him for it. Things break down. Tully and MJF are fighting each other in the ring. Spears takes out MJF. Tully takes MJF outside the ring, and with the ref distracted on that altercation outside the ring, out comes Arn Anderson, who hits the ring. He delivers a spine buster to Spears, who sells it beautifully, like anyone would want to sell the AA spine buster. Tully looks on in shock, follows Arn out of the arena up the ramp. Spears, later, now on his own, grabs a chair, brings that into the ring, but Cody ends up getting the hand on it. He doesn't hit him with it, but does toss it into the hands of Spears and hits a disaster kick into the chair, into the face of Shawn Spears, and again, plain sight of the referee. Cody then hits a crossroads for the win. this match was not a no disqualifications match. So, I mean, like, if you want to do that, just make it a no DQ match and we can have more fun with it. But there's just too many logic holes there that nothing was done to get rid of the chair. Nothing was done with the belt shot. Nothing was done with the disaster kick to the chair. Like, that's still illegal. And so there's that. This one, it kind of let me down a little bit in the sense of what I was expecting, and just the not really paying attention to the rules. So, and, you know, just too many smoke and mirrors would be the way of describing it. And I really wanted to just see a one-on-one, personal, two guys going in there and beating the hell out of each other, which is how it started, but it got away from that. And I would have liked to have seen Cody and Spears just take each other to the limit, beat the hell out of each other, and one man walks out the victor. And now in this case, Cody does get the win, and, you know, I don't see a point in continuing this with Rhodes winning. I mean, when the good guy already got the win, I don't see the point in continuing. I would have liked it more if Spears got the win here, even if it would have been by nefarious means. And, you know, you can set up a rematch at something later. So, you know, just not what I expected out of this match. Just too many smoke and mirrors. And I was really excited going into this match. And I just didn't feel like they gave what I wanted to see. But, you know, I'm open to anyone who enjoyed this. If you enjoyed that, then great. And, you know, I thought just about everything on this show was great. So I'm not gonna complain too much about this one match that didn't do exactly what I wanted. I cannot possibly even begin to recap the Lucha Bros versus Young Bucks match. This was the most ridiculous ladder match I have ever seen in my life. And, you know, maybe they're, like, I haven't watched a ton of Young Bucks stuff before AEW. And, you know, like, I've seen clips, and I think I've seen some of the matches they did with the Hardys. But as far as going against a team like the Lucha Bros, where they just go back and forth with big move after big move, other than the few AEW shows that they've done matches with them, this is largely my introduction to them. And this was just an absolute spot fest in every... It was a spot fest supreme times 10. There were 1,000 table spots, including a Canadian destroyer off a ladder into the table. And the most gruesome was Matt Jackson climbing the ladder and being pushed off, and there's 2 tables set up on the outside of the ring. So, you know, the goal is that you hit both of the tables, it breaks your fall. You hit the sweet spot, like right where you can go through both of them. What ends up happening is, you know, it ends up being shorter than what they wanted, and I think Matt might have got caught up in the ropes or something. But what ends up happening is Matt hits the first table cleanly, but his head just bounces off the second one. So that looked like it sucked. And, you know, there's other points in this match where I don't really care for the over theatrical side of it, or maybe that's not the right word, but where the Young Bucks are able to just climb up and grab the titles, but instead they want to do a cool move off the ladder. And, you know, even on commentary, they said, do you go for the titles or do you go for the moment? You go for the damn titles. Fuck the moment. You've had plenty of moments in this match. And, that ends up costing them. And the Lucha Bros are going to end up winning this match off of the Matt Jackson being spilled into those two tables. I think that was the big climactic ending spot. Lucha Bros win a freaking barn burner of a ladder match. And as they're gathering themselves, we get two men in presidential masks run in, take out everyone, Young Bucks and Lucha Bros, and it ends up being LAX, which it looks like they're not going to be able to call them that, or they're not by choice. I don't know, but either way, I know of LAX. I've heard a bunch of good things about them, but haven't really seen them, so this was my introduction to them. And from everything that everyone says, they're one of the best tag teams out there. So great addition to the AEW tag team division, which looks absolutely stacked right now. I'm not even sure if the Revival would be able to find a spot here with how many. That's a joke. The Revival can find a spot in any tag team division, but just saying that this is an absolutely stacked tag division, and with the amount of great tag teams they have, there's no reason that the tag team tournament they have set up at the beginning of TV should not be awesome. Now we get the main event, the moment we've all been waiting for. Chris Jericho versus Adam Hangman Page, who came in riding a damn horse. That's some real cowboy shit right there. And this match for the AEW World Championship will be refereed by Aubrey Edwards, which is absolutely awesome. And, like WWE does these things all the time where first ever women's Hell in a Cell match, first ever women's main event, first ever women's WrestleMania main event. And it always comes off as a PR spin, especially like that first ever women's pay-per-view. Especially when you take into account that since Ronda Rousey has left, they've done fuck all with the whole entire women's division. And, I've made my points clear on that there's only a select few that they actually care about. But my whole point with that is that WWE does, or at least, I don't want to say that they do the things they do with the women only because of PR, but it's certainly a big part of it. And WWE loves some good PR. But, they put Aubrey Edwards, the official, in the main event match. And, they didn't make a big deal of it. They talked about it on commentary briefly, but it wasn't made like this big PR spin. And Aubrey, and I've talked about it in the first few shows that she's done. She has the performance aspect of a referee down to a T. She is phenomenal, I think. And like we all know the referee's like real job as far as communicating from the back to the performers. You have this much time left. They want you to do this, whatever the case may be. Go home here, all that stuff. But what gets lost in all that is that the referee is also a performer. And you have to play the role of a referee. And Aubrey Edwards does that great. And it can't be understated. Like, you have to sell things as a referee. You can sell shock and just any other sort of emotion that anyone would have in the position that they're in. And Aubrey Edwards has been absolutely great in that role throughout the first few AEW shows. And I think it's awesome that she's being trusted in this big of a spot. So good for her. I think it's a great thing for anyone to see that, she's in the main event match of this show. I think that's great. So the small problem I find with these with Chris Jericho being in the main events of shows is that everything we've seen prior, the 9 matches prior, we've seen everything thrown at us but the kitchen sink. We've had that triple threat match with the staple guns, the paper cuts, the cracker barrels, and the table spots. There were 1,000 table spots before we get to this match. And Chris Jericho wrestles a completely different style, which is awesome, which is great, because Jericho is great at what he does. But when I think, and it didn't happen on this show, but I think we're going to run into a problem at some point where the crowd is just going to be too fatigued to care and really invest in a slower paced match when they've been given big move, big move, big move, big move, big move, big move, big move throughout every other match on the show. I think it contradicts what you want to do with a card. You want to save the big stuff for the main event. So, maybe that won't be as big of a deal as I'm making it sound like, but I do think it could become a problem at some point. But, this match, I love this match. And, maybe that's not the popular thing with Chris Jericho. I'm not sure what everyone thinks of him being in the main events. I know that, there'll at least be some people, old guy taking up the spot from the young guy. He can't keep up anymore. But, that's the thing about wrestling. You don't have to keep up. You're working together. And so Jericho can work with Adam Page, and they can put on a great match that they did here. And they can do it without having to do 1,000 Meltzer drivers or moonsaults or corkscrew moonsault 450 neckbreaker shit. Because the great thing about this match is that the crowd was in to everything that they did. And they didn't have to do much to do that. And that's what wrestling is built upon. That's why one of the greatest matches ever is The Rock versus Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania. If you watch that match with the sound off, it's a terrible match. But the crowd was so into it before either guy even touched each other. And that's what you strive for. You strive for that. You want to do the least amount possible and keep the crowd invested. So that way everything you do matters more. And they made the most out of every move. Things really pick up in this match after Hangman ends up busting open Jericho above the eye. I think Jericho probably gigged here, but as he fell to the ground, covered his face, and did all the shenanigans there. But a gasher above Jericho's eyes, and, commentary putting over, that Jericho won't be able to see out of that eye because of the blood. And, it was a good visual, and just really added to the match. From there, it became a battle of attrition. Just a lot of Hangman really took over from there. And, on commentary, too, they were saying that, the longer it goes, the more it favors the younger guy. And, that's true, because he's going to be able to endure more. And with Jericho being busted open, it seemed like it was a foregone conclusion that Adam Page would be able to put Jericho away. There were some great false finishes towards the end, Paige kicking out of the code breaker. Then later, Jericho just barely kicking out of the last shot. And I mean barely, just barely. And, Jericho Jericho is great at kicking out at the very last possible second. He's very good at that and making you buy into a near fall. And then we get the finish where Paige sets up for the last shot once again, but Jericho counters into a backslide. Paige rolls through, runs at Jericho, and gets hit with a Judas effect for the pinfall victory. Chris Jericho is the AEW World Champion. And you know, like, me and Chris talked about in the last Jericho match that, you know, we weren't crazy about the Judas effect as a finisher. I thought it looked better here. Like, when you have it in a different light, that Hangman, he just got out of a roll-up, and then he's running at Jericho and just runs right into an elbow. And, you know, I thought part of the reason I didn't like the first one was with the Kenny Omega over-exaggerated selling of it. And this one, Jericho hit it, Paige hit the deck. He didn't collapse, he hit the deck, and, you know, took a regular bump, which I think is how that move should really be sold. And Jericho gets the pin there. Lovely match. A great finish to an A+ show. You know, the match just showed what I really love in wrestling. Two guys that had the crowd invested. Didn't need to do a ton of false finishes, but the ones they did counted and meant more. And that crowd was on the edge of their seat after Hangman hit that last shot, and Jericho just barely gets the shoulder up. Very great stuff. I thought overall this was a fantastic show. I absolutely cannot wait for AEW on TNT. I can't wait because I'm going to be going to the one in Pittsburgh. I can't wait to do that. Hopefully I'm going to go to the one in Charlotte too. Would be awesome. But just absolutely phenomenal show. And it was a pleasure watching this. It was a pleasure being able to sit down here and review this show. And I've never been more excited for a time in wrestling, really. And there's just going to be so much content on mainstream TV with NXT going up against AEW, SmackDown on Fox going to Friday. Just fun times. And I'm really looking forward to what AEW continues to do. Yeah, that's all I gotta say. I've blessed this show enough. Maybe you didn't feel the same way. Maybe you didn't love this show. I'd love to hear any comments or any opinions of the show. You can comment below. Just I'll be completely okay going back and forth with anyone on why they're wrong if they didn't like this show. But, you know, thank you guys for watching. And, sheesh. I'll be back on Monday for Raw. Until then, have a good night.